let's talk about how hearing works. Sound is actually vibrations that travel through the air or another medium, and it's an audible mechanical wave. The physical properties of the wave are related to the characteristics of the sound: pitch, which is corresponding to frequency, and loudness, which corresponds to amplitude or the height of the wave. Different species can hear different ranges of sound frequency, and because the ability to hear is related evolutionarily to the ability to produce those sounds, generally individual species will be able to produce the range of sound that they can also perceive. On this chart, you can see that the range of hearing for whales, dolphins, and dogs far exceeds that of humans and other species. If you are familiar with a dog whistle, you have noticed that the whistle emits sound that dogs can hear, but humans cannot, and it's sound waves in the higher levels of frequency. Here is a different graph of the hearing ability across species. You'll notice here the dark red line is that of Asian elephants, and their ability to hear very, very low frequency sound waves far exceeds other species. There's a link on Canvas about research on the topic of elephant communication. For decades, humans believed that elephants did not communicate as much as they do, and there was a mystery about how the behavior of groups of elephants located far apart seemed to be coordinated. Well, it turns out that they were communicating at very low frequencies, and these very low frequencies of sound can travel very far distances. A general property of sound waves is that the lower frequency of sound travels farther than higher frequencies of sound. So if you think about your own life experience when you've heard a bass drum, which might be a low frequency of sound, or a piccolo, which is a high frequency of sound, it is the case that you'd be able to hear the bass drum from farther away than you would the sound of a piccolo. The loudness of sound is measured in decibels, and this figure shows you the relevant decibel level of different objects. Normal speech is around 40 decibels, a chainsaw would be over 80 decibels, and a loud rock band might be in the 120, 140 decibel range. Anything above 100 decibels is likely causing hearing damage, so be sure to wear your earplugs if you're going to be at a loud rock concert. Let's talk about the chain of events that happen outside and inside our ears that lead to us hearing sound. The fleshy cartilage that's our ear, also called the pinna, is actually an amplifier of sound that catches sound waves, amplifies them, and funnels them into our auditory canal. Once in the auditory canal, the sound waves eventually vibrate the eardrum or tympanic membrane. The vibration is transferred to the hammer, anvil, and stirrup, and also into the cochlea, where you have fluid in the canals. The hair cells hang down into the fluid, and as the fluid is moved by the vibration, the hair cells will transfer this vibration information into a neural signal and transfer it to the auditory nerve. The basilar membrane in the cochlea has a tonotopic organization, meaning different sections of it will transmit information about different frequencies of sound. In the temporal lobes, you find the primary and secondary auditory cortices. This is where the sound information ultimately is processed in the brain. Here you also have a tonotopic organization with different areas of the auditory cortex processing different frequencies of sound. So if someone had brain damage in just the precise location where high frequency sound was processed, one could then lose the ability to process that frequency of sound, but retain the ability to process other frequencies of sound. A reduction in hearing ability is normal in aging, and it's called presbycusis. It's from the Greek meaning elder plus hearing. About 30% of people over the age of 65 have some form of hearing loss. 50% of those over 75 have hearing loss. we particularly lose our ability to hear the higher frequency sounds, such as in a piccolo or children's high-pitched voices. As people get older, they may have slips of the ear more often. This is when you mishear something. One of the reasons is that the high-frequency sounds and speech sounds such as S and th and the voiceless consonants p, k, and t, these are misheard for their voiced counterparts b, g, and d. So, if your grandparents mishear what you're saying, it's not just them, it's generally most people as we get older. There are some forms of hearing loss that are progressive that run in families. It's only been a few decades that researchers have tracked down the genes that are responsible for this inherited form of hearing loss. Some people who are born deaf or become deaf as they age are eligible for a cochlear implant. These are implants that correct the problem within the inner ear in turning the sound wave into a neural signal. It becomes a cure for deafness. That's all for now.